Okay. Looks like everyone is starting to come in.
Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Very good. All right. Put all our on-time attendees. All right. We've got quite a lot to get through, so we might get started. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Good morning for those in WA. But welcome to today's webinar, which is the third in a series of 4 webinars where we're introducing the quality and custom registers that have been added recently to PracticeHub. Today's webinar is the third, as I said, and it is focusing on the custom registers. All right, so in the spirit of reconciliation, PracticeHub acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Once again, welcome. A couple of housekeeping things. If you have a question as we're going through today, please add it to the Q&A field and we will work through those. And a link to this recording will be sent to you after the webinar. So you'll have a record of this. You can go back and watch it again, and you can also share it with your team if you like as well. All right, so a bit of an overview of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how custom registers are a better way to consolidate information in PracticeHub. We're going to have a look at the key features. We're going to talk about how you set up your custom registers, how you then use them. And lastly, we'll talk about transitioning from existing systems and processes that you already have in place, because we know that the types of things that you would create custom registers for, you keep in other systems or other ways at the moment. All right, so I'm going to hand over to Vanessa Law, who's our head of product here at PracticeHub. And Vanessa, if you would like to kick us off.
Sure thing. Thanks, Anna Maria. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's session. So today we're here to chat to you about custom registers. For those of you that joined us for webinar 1, we touched on some of the reasons why we actually created the custom registers module. But I'll just recap to say that we realised as we were building out quality registers that we had a need beyond managing feedback incidents and risks. And as a result, custom registers was born. And really what custom registers is a new way to structure, organise and connect information in PracticeHub. So it is different to using, for example, a table in a page in the manual. It actually gives you a much better experience. It's a little bit like Excel. And in fact, we're actually suggesting that you could say goodbye to Excel for those of you that do use it, if you want to store and manage information in PracticeHub. Ideally, the reason that it's here is that we do want to reduce reliance on other systems and locations. We think that in PracticeHub, you get the most value out of it if you actually use it as a central repository where you've got all the information that you need for you and your team. And custom registers also helps to improve visibility and accessibility. So we've actually changed the way that we manage permissions or grant permissions in custom registers, and we'll take you through what that looks like today. We've also introduced some new features that don't exist elsewhere in PracticeHub other than quality registers. There are very different and extensive filtering and sorting capabilities, and we've also got the ability to export the information out because we understand that you may wish to report on this or do further analysis on any of the data that's captured in custom registers. So some of the key features that I just sort of touched on, it really is designed to meet your needs. We realised that we were never going to be able to create a register for everything that you needed. And so what we did was come up with the idea that you could actually create and define registers that meet your needs. And by that, what we're saying is you can create the columns you need. You can decide what type of columns you want to have in there. You can actually choose who can see and do what within custom registers, and we're granting permissions on a per register basis. And so what that means is you've got 5 registers and you've got 5 different groups of people that you want to be able to access, edit, and or manage. You can actually grant permissions on a per register basis rather than here's custom registers and everyone can access everything that's in there. You can do it for each register as required. The column types that we have, and the reason why we actually prompt you to select the type of column, is all about how we structure the data. So if you do want to filter, if you do want to easily find information, it's much easier and it's a much better user experience if you're actually looking for structured data. So for example, if we add a column type that is a date, you can actually choose that date from a calendar field and we'll always pick up that date range when we're filtering. Some examples of where you might actually start to use registers. We created a couple of templates just to get you started if you've already been in and had a look. We created a training register and a medicine list. What we really wanted to do was demonstrate some of the capabilities that exist in custom registers, but really there's no limits to what you can do with custom registers. You can create as many registers as you want, you can create as few as you want, but some of the ideas, some of the things that you may actually use custom registers for are listed out here on the screen. So hazardous substances, we've already seen that people are starting to create custom registers with the title hazardous substances. We've seen some quality improvement titles come through as well. It could be a key register. It could be anything that you currently manage either on paper or in other tools and systems like Excel. It's where you particularly want to share that information and make sure that it's transparent and visible to some or all members of your team. That's where we're recommending that you actually start to use custom registers. Maria, if you can just flip to the next one. So some of, I guess, the key questions and further information can actually be found in the release notes that are currently available in the resources section of PracticeHub. Who can create a custom register? So anyone that actually is an administrator today can navigate through the side menu to registers and select Manage Registers option. From there, you can create a custom register, and for each custom register, as I just mentioned, you can set the permissions for who can view, edit, and manage that register. You can do this at any time. You don't just have to do it at setup. In fact, you could skip it at setup if you really wanted to, and you can assign permissions at any point after you've published the register. And yes, there is no limit to how many custom registers you can create. The permissions, again, you really need to decide who needs to be able to view, edit, and or manage those custom registers. So a little bit more about how those permissions work. View means that the user can actually log in and view the register and all the entries that are in the register. They can't make any changes to the register. They can't actually, they can actually record data in there, but they can't edit the register. And editing the register is really about, I just got that wrong. Let me restart. Viewing is purely viewing. Editing is the ability for people to come in and actually update records in the register. So they can add entries and they can delete their entry if they've made a mistake. Manage is a new permission that we've introduced. And what this means is the person or people that are responsible for managing that actual custom register. So not only can they view and update records, so they can actually enter data in, they can actually modify the register layout. So if, for example, you create a register and you decide that you need an additional column, anyone with that can manage permission can come in and add that additional register column. So they'll have access to the edit button, which means they can update the register layout or schema. People with the manage permission can also set permissions for other members of your team. So if you've got a new starter and you actually want them to be able to access a particular register, whether it's for view or edit or even manage, anyone with that can manage permission can come in and assign those permissions out for that user. And lastly, anyone with the can manage permission can also delete the register. Not something that we recommend because if you do delete, we cannot retrieve that data, but the ability is there. So the can manage permission is a little bit like an administrator, but it's for a specific register. Thanks, Anna Maria.
Thank you. I was going to say, I think one of those things, rather than deleting, what you might just do is use permissions to actually structure access, remove access for people if they no longer need to see a particular register.
Absolutely.
Getting ahead of ourselves.
We are.
We are. So we are going to go over into my test site in a minute and have a look at how it all works in real life. As Vanessa mentioned, we've given you a couple of registers to get started with, the medicines list and the training register. You'll see the different column types. And a couple of other things you can do is you can duplicate a register, which is great. So you can copy a register, which will copy the headings and the structure, but not the actual entries. Example I can think for that might be if you had like a training register, you might create a new one every year. So you want the format to be the same, but you don't need the content to be duplicated as well. All right. On that note, let's head over to my test site, which I can assume you can all see. Something that might be kind of interesting for our attendees to do, if they wouldn't mind, or if they think of something, is to have a look at, as we go through, to maybe put in that chat or the Q&A what kind of registers they themselves could see themselves building or creating in here now that they have access to this. I think we'd find that quite interesting as well. All right, so I'm here in my test site. I'm logged in as an administrator. You're looking for the item at the bottom of the registers tab called Manage Registers. So if you haven't been in there, that's where you need to go to get started. And once we go in, what we'll be able to see is that we've got the ability to create your own register or select a template, as we mentioned before, the medicines list or the training register. You can also see here, I already have some that I'll go through and show some of them to you in a minute, but the ones that have already been created are here. You can see some details around the columns, when were they created, last updated, and there's also some action items under the 3 dots here. So if we want to edit, duplicate or delete, we can do that from there as well. But look, let's get started with a new register. I'm going to call it, actually, I've already done it, maybe a uniform register. So again, we're going to call it the uniform register. The users that are already administrators in my site already have managed permissions. If I want to give anybody else that's set up as a user in PracticeHub access to this register, I can choose them and I can choose what they can do in here out of the 3 different options. And I can assign that. So I can see these people can manage and this person can edit. Once I've done that, I can continue. And now that brings me to basically my blank screen with the option to start adding columns. So let's start first up with the user field. And the reason I'm using a user field, not a free text field for the name, is because that will allow me to pick from a drop-down list of everybody who is set up as a user in PracticeHub. So let's go with that. Let's go with the date. We might do date provided. Let's put something like a text field. Let's do items provided. And maybe let's do a yes, no, wanting to be returned. Maybe some things you might not get people to return. You're not going to reuse them. So there's a quick and easy example. So here's my uniform register. I can select who it is. I can select the date that they were provided. So they started last week on Monday. There's the date. Maybe it's like, 3 skirts, 2 shirts. And do they need to be returned? I won't say yes, or maybe we'll say yes. There we go. And so now I have created a register and added the items in here. And that is automatically saving. So autosave is automatically incorporated here as well. If I wanted to, I could export this into a CSV file as well. So you can see how easy that was to do. So let's have a look at some other examples. Now I think if I click on edit, just before I leave this example, as Vanessa mentioned earlier, you can also do permissions when you're actually in the register, not just at the creation stage. So I can go back in here. And if you remember, Bobby Brown here had editing permissions. Maybe I actually want to change that and just say they can only view now. But that's a really easy way in which to go through and review and update permission settings within each individual register. If I want to change the register, edit the name, again, you can see there was the little pencil, so I can update the name of it as well.
And Maria, it might be a good time just to call out that once you've started to record data, you can't change the column types. And so while we were just editing, you can change the name, you can add columns and you can remove columns, but you can't change the type of columns. And the reason for that is because the column type is structured. If you were to change it to a different type of column, we would need to map the data and change it. And for that reason, we're not currently supporting that because a date might not necessarily map nicely to a text field, and a text field might not map nicely to a date field. So that's the reason you can't actually change those columns once you've started to record data in there.
Cool. Excellent. Good point. Thank you. All right. So if we have a look, any register that you create will end up under the Registers tab, and they'll be there in alphabetical order. So those of you that would be familiar with the 3 registers that were there previously, contracts, equipment, and insurance, they are still there under the Registers tab, but they're now in alphabetical order in between all of the other custom registers that you've created. Not forgetting also the quality registers that were released last week as well. And some of you may have attended our webinar last week where we talked about quality registers. So those other registers are all listed in here in alphabetical order. So just a quick look at some of the things, your accreditation action plan, you could create a register for that. So that's a really simple, what criterion does it relate to? What are the actions? Who's responsible? When are we going to do it by? Has it been created? Yes or no? Do we have any notes we want to add? Based on things that you've got in your quality register, you might have a quality improvement register. So again, great for evidence, what date did we put this in? What's the activity? Why are we doing it? Who's responsible? Has it been completed? Do we have any notes that we want to add to that? A couple of other good ones that we've thought of or have heard about. One is a key register. So, you're giving out keys and access to people when they join the practice. So, this person got a key, this one got the remote for the car park, someone else got a key. When did they get them? When did they return them? So things like that are quite useful. We know if you've got sonographers working in your organisation, they're not APRA registered, but it is handy to keep that information here. So what type of registration do they have, their name, specialty, and their member number. So those sorts of things can go in there. Another one that you might find useful to think about is the working with children and police check register. So again, the person's name, do they need it? Some of these columns are now quite tight, but what's the number? When does it expire? Where was it issued? Do they need a police check? Yes or no? I think these yes, no columns are probably one of my favorite things, to be honest. And, again, what's the number? When does it expire? Where was it issued? So I know particularly in places like South Australia, certainly the working with children checks are very important. So this is a really good way of being able to keep that information all in one place. Of course, we do give you a training register template to get started, and then you can always customize it. When was it completed? Who did the training, the topic, the provider? What was the reason? How long? Was it online, in person? Whatever it was they did, has it been completed? Is there a certificate that came with it? Yes or no? So even in-house training that you do, you could log that on here. And again, for those of you that get accredited, this will be a fantastic way of providing evidence of that training as well. All right. So we might just have a think about back to my screen. Here we go. So one of the things we wanted to talk about was around transitioning. So, one of the catchphrases we've been using in the organization is, say goodbye to Excel, because we know that you keep a lot of stuff in tables and in Excel. So this is a great way of thinking about what could you move into the custom registers. So if you're already creating tables, think about those sorts of things because of those enhanced permission settings, because of the configurable column types and layout. And a big thing, of course, that the fact that you've got information stored in fewer locations. So having a think about what might you transfer over, anything in a table, that could be all sorts of things, but otherwise maybe think about things that have got a time frame base. So maybe stuff that you've been recording in this current financial year or calendar year, or things that you've been recording going back since your last accreditation assessment. So something like your quality improvement register, if you were accredited in 2022, then maybe that's kind of the line in the sand that you draw and go, okay, everything that we've done, that we've put in a quality improvement register since our last accreditation, we're going to put in this new register. Same goes for things like training. Or if you've got items that are open, they're still in progress, those might be things that you want to include as well. The other important thing, of course, is how are you going to communicate these new workflows to your team? Of course, you can use the messages function in PracticeHub and either post to the message board or send an email. And don't forget to update policies and procedures to reflect the use of these new registers. So I was talking to a practice earlier today. They've got one process for recording their CPR information. And so that process, the policy explaining to the staff how it needs to be recorded, is going to be changed to reflect the fact that they now use the training register in PracticeHub for that. All right. Not sure if we have any questions or comments at this stage. But Vanessa, is there anything else you think we might need to tell our attendees today?
Don't think there's anything else to add. We don't currently have any questions that have been raised by anyone on the call. We are doing a wrap-up session on Thursday this week. Thanks, Santa Maria, for popping that up. We're very keen to get feedback, particularly on custom registers. I know that we release both quality and custom registers together, but we really want to understand how custom registers can help you in your organisation. We're keen to get any ideas around, are there other templates that we should be supplying? What other things can we do to help you and your team? So any feedback is always appreciated. Good, bad, or indifferent is what we always say. We're here to help you, and the only way we can do that is if we actually hear from you. So any suggestions, if you love it, tell us that as well. It's always great to share that with our team and to let them know how things are going.
Yeah. And thank you to Anne. Can you see the webinar from last Thursday? Yes. What we'll do is send links to all 4 webinars out to you. I think that's the plan, isn't it?
Yeah, I think after Thursday's session.
Yeah, exactly. So after this Thursday's session, we will. But Anne, you've registered. So the fact that you registered, you'll definitely get a copy of the recording from last week as well. So thank you for that. I think, Vanessa, the other thing too is the feedback from our customers is so valuable, because these things, even though they've been released, that doesn't mean that's the end of the road, particularly with custom registers, because we're really interested to see how people use them, and therefore what other things we might, what other functionality might be requested. We don't know everything from everyone, but we have to prioritize, and what people request and how they use these will help us to prioritize what we do next.
Absolutely. And Anna Marie, you just reminded me, it would be remiss of me not to mention, if you haven't been in to manage registers yet, once you do go in there, there are actually a couple of in-platform product tours designed to help you. They'll show you some of the stuff that we've just been through, like how do you add columns, the different column types, how do you use drag and drop to, change the layout, even if you've got your columns in there. They're there to help you. So they're a very simple tour. Don't be afraid. Don't think you need to remember everything or you need to have the release notes next to you. That's not the intent. So those in-platform product tours are there to help guide you through getting started with managing registers.
They are indeed. And of course, I was remiss in not mentioning that in the side menu under resources, you will find the release notes for custom registers full of good information, most of which we've covered today, but also some frequently asked questions and just a handy reference for you as well. And also paired up with that is also release notes for quality registers as well. So this is a really good, in addition to the product tours that you'll see pop up when you go in, these two documents, particularly for today's topic, the custom registers under resources, I think you'll find really helpful. All right, well, with a couple of minutes to spare, we might leave it there. Thank you to everyone who joined this afternoon. We'll hopefully see you on Thursday where we'll do a wrap up. But in the meantime, feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and we hope you enjoy creating some new registers. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.